What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Dark Reflections. My name's Burton, and tonight we are finally getting to the masterpiece that is the new album by Cattle Decapitation, Death Atlas. Let me try to get you a better shot of that cover, because it is worth it. Oh my god. Absolutely stunning artwork. I am in love with this cover art, no question. It was done by a gentleman named Wes Ben Scotter. Not sure how to pronounce his name, but definitely check out his work because it is outstanding. This is Cattle Decapitation's 7th full-length studio release. It was released on November 29th, 2019 on Metal Blade Records. Now, before we get in, I do want to say this one took me so long because A, it's my first ever Cattle Decap album. It's a giant album, and I really wanted to spend a whole lot of time with it before I sat down and talked about it like this. I didn't get the album right away. I got it mid-December, and I've been absolutely obsessed with it ever since. For anyone who doesn't know, Cattle Decapitation was founded in 1996 in California, and while it no longer features technically any founding members, lead vocalist Travis Ryan has been in the band since '97 and has appeared on all of their studio releases. First full length was in 2002. The rest of Cattle Decapitation is Josh Elmore on guitar, Dave McGraw on drums, Oliver Pinard on bass, and Belisario Demuzio on guitar. Cattle Decapitation falls somewhere between grindcore, death metal, and technical death metal. And from a lyrical and thematic perspective and an artwork perspective, they often use it to protest the treatment of the environment and the mistreatment of animals bred for human consumption. This is a band with something to say. They have a message beyond just being fast, hard, and gory. And it's one that isn't heard all too often in the heavy metal community, especially bands of these particular subgenres. The message has possibly, in my opinion, never been presented in such a more beautifully haunting, horrifying, and bleak way as it is on this album, Death Atlas. Full disclosure, I am going to be reading from notes a lot on this one. This is a big one for me, so I want to make sure I get it all right. The album opens with the first of 3 interlude tracks, which all include very bleak sounding transmissions over haunting, echoing backgrounds. The first is entirely in languages other than English, and it walks the listener up this slow build of urgency, leading into the intensity of The Genocide, which is the next track. The Genocide kicks in with the sound of a drum blast and then instant descent into absolute chaos and a fucking waterfall of blast beats, almost going into like a marching rhythm and howling screams, setting a tone for the entire rest of the album. It sort of plateaus then for the first time we hear Ryan's demonic growl, which then crescendos into this clean vocal style, and it's instantly both bone-chilling and haunting to me. Again, this is my first experience with Cattle Decapitation in terms of a full album top to bottom. So I have never heard that vocal style before, and it blew me away instantly. And apparently, it's earned the nickname affectionately Goblin Vocals. So I guess that's how I'll refer to it here. The sound is immediately so huge, you almost feel like there could be a backing orchestra or symphonics going on, but there aren't any. And the drumming on the album top to bottom is on another level. It's absolutely insane. It's total fucking chaos with heartbeat-like precision and thunderous crashing drums, and I really felt like this is a track they stood out for me, without question. Some of the lyrics on that track also, the universe, it will always find a way to purge the sustainably inappropriate numbers that once surged. Oh! And then the hapless mortals shit birthed on a human-altered planet Earth. Like, are you kidding me? Some of the fucking lyrics on this album are insane. One of my favorite, though, aspects of the album is how good of a job it does at marrying pure, vengeful, rampaging, adrenaline brutality with sometimes, like, very somber, melancholy, bleak, and sometimes hopelessly sad emotional ranges. The music takes us on a journey, but Travis Ryan's vocal performance seals the fucking deal. And I think he really shows off his full range on the track Absolute Destitute. It opens with one of the most demonic growls we've heard on the album so far. And then for the rest of the track, he takes us through pretty much every single other style that we hear on the entire rest of the album. And when you really pay attention to that, it's fucking insane to me that all those different sounds are coming out of one person with such ferocity and precise delivery. Another standout for me in vocal performance, but also one that I think does a good job at illustrating the wide range of emotions the album takes you through, is the track Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts. I constantly go back to it. It's one of my favorite tracks without question. The hook is straight bone chilling, and it's surrounded by like this bleak, dark, terrifying sort of like atmosphere. So the song moves a lot. And it starts with like this rolling drums into neck-breaking headbanging and death growls. I feel like the drumming again on this track especially shines. This was another standout for the drumming from me. Really shows off the drummer's range. After the death growls, it goes into the haunting vocal style. Not quite the goblin thing, but until 2 verses later. But it does. The music does take like this downward turn, almost as if you're fucking falling, and then the hook catches you. Another reason this is a standout for me is when I read the lyrics sometimes. It's as if the vocalist Travis Ryan is speaking from using different vocal styles to speak from different perspectives, all right, on some tracks. And especially on this one, to me, the goblin vocals literally almost feel like a broken, beaten, and bloodied earth speaking to the human race. And it's absolutely, again, one of my favorite tracks on the album. Like, Be Still, the hook, Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts, Death is Part of Life, fucking gets me every goddamn time. But again, I just think it's one of my favorite tracks, and it does a good job at illustrating the ride that the album as a whole takes you on, and it does it in this one particular track really well, I think. However, no matter the range of emotions that this album takes us through, it never for a second sacrifices any of the heavy. And 2 of the tracks that I break my neck to every time I listen to this album are Vulturous and Bring Back the Plague. First of all, Vulturous is pure fury. And I feel like lyrically is trying to make the point that if all humans do is live for today, then what will be left for tomorrow? They are essentially saying humans are vulturous in nature, and by living for today, and Cattle Decapitation responds with, quote, as if tomorrow we will die, end quote. Absolutely some of my favorite guitar work on the album. The riffing, which takes you like on a downward spiral, literally feel like swooping vultures coming in, something kind of a thing, like just like these, literally feels like swooping vultures at certain points. The movements, the solo are absolute pure beauty. One of my favorite sections on this track is late in the clean goblin vocals. The lines, I need to see the species burning, I need to taste the world erased. Death is pale, from ashes smoldering, we need to feel his cold embrace. Terrifying. Goosebumps. Are you kidding me? Terrifyingly beautifully written. And also when you listen to it, underneath there's like another vocal track. I don't know who does it. I don't know whose idea it was, but to me, it sounds like almost like old school Dracula. Like, I want to suck your blood. You know what I mean? Like that old school, low voice kind of Dracula sounding. I don't know what that is, but to me, it's genius. And it really, for me, pushes that track over the edge and gives it that extra fucking creepy, chilling vibe. Then, Bring Back the Plague, the other one I mentioned that I break my neck to, will almost certainly be a live staple for this band. It's one of the most brutal track titles that I've heard in a long time, and as soon as you get a whole crowd chanting, Bring Back the Plague, it's going to be fucking over. The song is a fucking journey. It has a lot of big movements and sections, It really is a brutally epic 4 minutes and 28 seconds long. It starts with a crescendo into madness and a wall of sound down into neck-breaking rhythm into something that sounds like a ravenous demon in a black metal song, then into the first goblin vocal section, and then which somehow only makes it heavier. Then it drops us down to this dark, doomy swamp feeling almost. Moves to the chorus. Like I said, it's tons of movements in this song, and it's a beautifully brutal journey for me. And that brings us now. Lastly, I have to talk about by far probably the most ambitious track on the album. Title track Death Atlas clocks in at 9 minutes and 15 seconds long. All right. And it's so huge. It's a huge song for almost any band, unless you're prog, unless you're Doom, or unless you're Iron fucking Maiden. Quite frankly, but especially for a band of the more extreme subgenres like Cattle Decap. And then especially capping off we're gonna drop a 10-minute long song at the end of a 14-track album. Huge. And then guess what else we're gonna do? We're going to release that 10-minute track song or that 10-minute long song as a fucking single. And that's exactly what they did. Unbelievable. And I fucking love it. The track literally to me feels like the end of an amazing concert. We've been waiting the whole show for them to break out the biggest guns and show us everything they got, and that's exactly what Cattle does on this track. Everything you've heard and loved on the album up to this point, all right, they execute it here with perfection and precision and absolute mastery. This is a band typically placed in a grindcore category that just made, arguably, in my opinion, one of the single best metal tracks of the last decade. The operatic Dracula voice is almost back in certain parts. They literally pull out every stop and use everything they got. Like I said, typically this band is put in subgenre of grindcore, but I don't think in a million years I'd call this track or this album grindcore. I don't think it fits into just one category. I think it has too many elements of other categories, so for me, it's just straightforward, heavy fucking metal at its goddamn finest. It shows us that metal can be insanely brutal and intense, but also deep and emotional, and does it in stunning dark beauty. It's an absolute masterpiece that brings together all the elements we've heard on the album so far, in pure, haunting, howling glory. Okay? The album seems to essentially be speaking to humanity from a post-human apocalyptic world. A sort of, look at what you've done, the warning signs were there, don't be sad because there's no going back now. One of the most brilliant aspects on this album is how they managed to pull off genuine, emotional, melodic, clean vocals, not only without anyone batting an eye, but actually saying how brilliant it is, like I have been this entire time. To me, this album is an absolute masterpiece of any genre, but especially of the more extreme side of metal. I feel like for many, this will be a bridge album to get them into other subgenres and categories. This is absolutely one of my top 3 albums to have come out in the last year, and I highly recommend everyone who hasn't picked up a copy yet do so. It's an absolute masterpiece. I'm going to buy every single Cattle Decapitation album now. I can't wait to see them live, and they have earned a lifelong fan from me with this album. Absolutely, without hesitation, 5 out of 5 horns. This thing is another level, and it's an absolute masterpiece, and I pretty much feel completely unqualified just sitting down and talking about it because of how insane it is. I love this album. I'm completely addicted to it. It is permanently in the regular rotation, and I hope you all enjoy it as well. That's going to be it. That's it for me in this episode of Dark Reflections. I know this one came out super late. The rest of them won't be months after the album comes out, I promise. And in fact, we got at least two, maybe 3 coming up in the next, or at least one coming up before the end of this month, 2 to 3 coming up within the next 2 months. So lots to look forward to. We got new episodes coming, all kinds of fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Dark Reflections. I can't tell you what it means to me. I hope you all enjoyed the new album, Cattle Decapitation Death Atlas, as much as I do. And I hope to see you in the pit. Raise your horns, bang your heads. I love you all to death. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.